going to go ahead and introduce Nora Harden. She's the Executive Director for the Pikes Peak Art Council, and we'll introduce the panel. So thank you all for being here today. Nora?
Thanks, Rita. So, welcome. Thanks. I'm so glad you're here. And it couldn't be a better collaboration. I think it's pretty perfect. Small business development and some arts and culture support is what we're all about, and kind of recognizing that our community has some really strong talent. Maybe those creatives don't have as professional, as much skill set built up in terms of the business side of business. So we hope that these courses will offer that to all genres of the arts in our community. We've had one kind of more slanted toward the visual art community, this one for musicians. Our next one, June 24th, will be directed towards the film industry, so that will be kind of an interesting one. And we are in a brand building stage. I mean, this is brand new. This is the second one we've done, and we understand that to build this into something that is a relevant resource in our community, we need your input. This course is for you, you know, and we hope you get a lot out of it, but we would love to have some interaction, and I think we welcome. Hi. We would love to, you know, review your evaluations and take on some new ideas that you give us, so I'm going to introduce the panel, or I'm going to let the panel actually introduce themselves and kind of give some introductory remarks so that they can provide a little context to what everyone does, so that you'll you know, kind of hopefully you have some questions in mind, and they can give you some information that will help you spark some interest in some of the things that they know about. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm Robert Case. I have 2 music publishing companies here in Colorado Springs, and been in the music business 27 years, and I've been in all aspects of the business, including production, recording, touring, pretty much every hat you could have in this business. So I'm glad that Nora and the rest of the guys that started this course, we hope you get a lot of good information out of it.
I'm Doug Garvey. I'm a board member on Colorado Music Business Organization, COMBO. Our president's back there, Barb Dye. And I've been performing on stage for about 56 years now, and started when I was pretty young. And I've been involved in a lot of aspects of the business. Presently, I'm producing artists. Next Sunday, I'm taking an artist from San Diego to record for a week in Nashville. So my emphasis, I guess, is at this point in time in my career is helping artists understand how to be coachable, what they need to know, pointing them in the right direction, resource-wise, so that they can be fairly intelligent in the choices that they make for their career. And that's one of the emphasis we have at Combo. So.
I'm Steve Harris, and I've been here in Colorado Springs for 22 years now almost. I had a radio show on KRCC for 18 years, different radio shows, different genres. Started with reggae and moved to jazz, and then since 2007 I've been doing a show called The Grassroots Revival. I'm now on KCMJ, which is a new community radio station that is only streaming on the internet, but hopefully by this summer it'll have its own FM location at 93.9 FM here in Colorado Springs. I also have experience producing concerts. I started a reggae festival in the 90s that lasted 4 years, but currently I am running the Meadowgrass Music Festival. I formed a nonprofit organization last year called Rocky Mountain Highway. Our mission statement is to make Colorado Springs into a world-class music destination, which is a tall order. There's a lot of work to be done there, but we think it's a goal that we can achieve. Meadowgrass is our major project, although we've been doing other concerts and other collaborations and just trying to figure out how best to plug into things. I do have posters and flyers. If you're interested in Meadowgrass after the panel, you're welcome to come take some.
I'm David Jeffrey. I play in a bluegrass band called Grass It Up, and I work for the Independent. I've been there for 10 years, and I've had Grass It Up out here this is our 10th year. Moved out here from Alabama, and had a few friends follow me out here, and we've been playing around the state for the last 10 years, and the work I've done also with the Independent, they both go hand in hand. One, they're really flexible and they let me go and play gigs whenever I want to, and two, they really help with the local music community and promoting events and rallying behind artists and doing the music awards, and all these things are just right up my alley. So I've been able to manage both of the careers, I guess is what I would call it, throughout the years. And some of the things that we've been able to do is bring in different musicians and play with us over the years, like David Siegel that's out here in the audience now. He's a fantastic violinist and fiddle player. And we have brought in some beginner musicians that just have tons and tons of raw talent and help them kind of develop their sound and their presence in the community here and there. And we just brought a lot of our vigor and vitality out here from Alabama to play music, and there's such a great scene in Colorado that it really, the whole state helps support live music, and that's where we kind of plug in to be able to help people. As we've got contacts and to help ourselves. It's especially bluegrass in general, that type of music is pretty big out here, and so it was easy to get gigs right off the bat, just moving out here with a banjo on my knee practically, and we had no problem getting shows and packaging that way, with bluegrass. So that's what I've done in the community here. Amy?
Okay, just making sure you were done. Hi, I'm Amy Whitesell, and I'm the CEO of a music company. The company was formed in 2006, and at that point we were producing shows. We were a booking agency, worked with lots of nonprofits, involved with a lot of festivals, concert series. I've worked with several people on this panel. I'm involved with Meadowgrass. I've booked Doug Garvey on several things. I've booked David on several things with his band. So I guess my role here is to talk about what makes you look professional in the eyes of others that are looking to book you, and why would they want to book you. And I'm going to leave it at that till we get into questions.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll ask, how many of you are performers? So nearly all.
Not music.
Okay, great. I guess, and again, interactive workshop, please, this is just a conversation. It's not for everyone to sit and just listen to the panel, so really interact and you don't even have to raise your hand. If you've got something to say, just say it and let's have a lively conversation. I think in some of the pre-conversation that we were having, I'd like to ask what each of you feel like the biggest change in the industry has been in the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, there are some pretty obvious ones, and how that sort of affects, the low end and the high end of the industry.
You're talking industry, the whole industry as a whole. Well, I feel, in my thoughts of it, is that the business has gone where you have the upper tier, which is the Jay-Z's, the Taylor Swifts of the world, and then you have the low end, which is the independent struggling artist that goes out and tries to promote their music and do bars and clubs. And when I started in the business, there was 30 recording companies, several booking agencies, the industry now has consolidated down to almost 3 companies on a large scale. So one of the things that we're dealing with, all of us on this panel, is to try to figure a way to continue to survive and continue to be successful promoting our music artists and our music catalogs. And I would say that would be probably in the last 15 years. You know, everybody in here has a cell phone. I'm sure they have about a $100 bill or $200 bill a month, but there are people that are married to that at all different ages, and so they'll go out and spend $600 on an iPhone, but they won't go out and watch a performer at a club who makes maybe $50 to $100 for his gig, or a band might make $200-300 if that's about the number, and so we really have a skewed music industry because you have technology that's exploded, and your middle ground has changed, and so it's up to us as a community and as a industry to continue to move forward. That's my perspective.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen that it's obvious video has changed the whole industry. It used to be that we went to concerts and we did everything with our ears. Now we do over half with our eyes. Hence the lights, the dancers, and what's been left behind is the performers at the lower end don't have either the budget or the energy to try to put a huge visual thing together, and the people who are coming in to see the acts are expecting the visual. And I think that's been pretty much the center point of the huge change that's happened, and that's why I think a lot of the acts that are local or whatever are left behind, because they don't have a lot of visual. And our whole society is so visual now with everything, with the TV and our iPhones and YouTube, and I mean, that's the whole thing. And if you don't play that game, you're left behind. That's one of the biggest changes among others, but I think that's the biggest one I've seen.
Yeah, music festivals right now are definitely in a growth phase. I just went to the International Music Festival Conference in Austin in December, and it's a huge industry right now. Everything from the big ones, Coachella and Bonnaroo and whatnot, but down to small ones all over the place. And I know we can all think about festivals that we know that were here that have died because it's a difficult business, and you typically have to have a 3 to 5 year period to expect to lose money before you can actually start turning a profit. But what we're finding is that even though there is this reliance on technology and phones, people still crave experiences. And so certainly in the festival industry, what we're trying to do is create experiences. And that goes a long way towards drawing people to these festivals. Obviously, there's also a shift away from CDs. At KRCC, all I did was play CDs. Now at KCMJ, all I play is digital downloads. Digital downloads are, I'm like using them now. It's a little more difficult though, because they don't come with information typically attached to them, where you used to get liner notes when you had a CD. And you
The
could read about
metadata,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, when I'm looking for things to play on my show or bands to book, I mean, there's definitely, it's a changing industry for how you get yourself out there and properly marketed to people who you want to hear your music.
Yeah, and just kind of piggybacking off what they've talked about, when I first started playing back in Alabama, when we wanted to get people to our show, we just picked up the phone and called a few friends, and they called a few friends, and a few people came out and we had a party, right? And now it's, you pick up the phone, you send the emails, you send the Facebook and the Twitter, and it all just adds up. You got 10 or 15 different things you can do. And if you've leveraged them all correctly, it turns out to a few people at your show with just a very few buttons pushed. And then, but you can't just stop there. You still have to reach back to the traditional forms of media and outreach. You can't just expect a Facebook post or a phone call to fill the seats in the venue. You've still got to advertise in the newspaper. You still got to have the video out. You still got to have word of mouth. You still got to go do some talking on the air on Steve's show and engage the community more than just, you know,
Can
this
you
simple button.
elaborate on that? For here in Colorado Springs, where would we go? My husband and I had a show in Branson for a couple of years, and we're back in Colorado Springs now. And there, you know, the marketing, you know exactly what to do, because there's all these different magazines that market, there's these TV shows that market, there's the radio that markets. But now that we're back here, you know, I haven't really been taken on a bigger show because I just don't even know where to go. I mean,
Right.
you know, are you saying, you know, the independent?
Yeah.
You know, can you get into some details?
Sure.
Where do we go to market? What kind of venues would you suggest for, you know, somebody who's not wanting to do the bar gigs, and yet we're not Miley Ray Cyrus? You know, we're these ones in between here where we're, you know, we've done some fine arts center gigs traveling around. And when we lived in Missouri, they had a touring group. You know, they had support for their touring artists, where the state of Missouri would pay part of the fee for the Fine Arts Center for the artists to go around. Well, coming here to Colorado, I'm not finding anything like that, and there's not like something. So can you kind of get into details, like talk specific,
Right.
and also venues? I mean, what would you suggest?
Well, let's go.
Can I just tag on to that, because
Sure.
I just was at the CCI's conference on creative arts districts last week and went to the music strategy breakout session. So are you familiar with that, and can you expand on that, because I think it would answer some
Yes.
questions.
I would use Meadowgrass as an example, but I think it's a little bit up there. We want to get back where we're, you know, looking for smaller venues and how to approach that. And so one place I know that I've done some work for advertising shows is Stargazers Theater. We've done some things there with running just very small campaigns and saw pretty good success from a very limited budget. And what I've done with them or various other venues in town with the independent is we've got, of course, the traditional print product that you can place an ad in, and it reaches, you know, if you run it for a month, you're going to reach over 140,000 people in the community. But if you wanted to do something a little more, a little quicker, say you got a week or two to advertise, we do. And I've done this. We run our banner ads on our websites and our mobile apps and all these things where you're just communicating directly with people and engaging them that way. And you run these campaigns for maybe a couple weeks, for a month before your show, linking them up to your website and all the information about the event. We also do ticket giveaways that go out to several thousand opt-in email subscribers, and they opt in to win tickets to your show. And, you know, I just did a show for a guy releasing a movie here at Stargazers called Tsunami. He sold like 350 tickets and spent $1,000 on advertising. And, you know, at $10 or $15 a ticket, he didn't make a ton of money, but for a local release of his movie to get 350 people out is pretty good. And that was just a campaign that we did. He came to me and said, I got $1,000. What can you do? And I ran a few weeks of print ads for him, and I ran the newsletter, and I ran some ticket giveaways. It worked.
I wanted to just, and I'll let Amy talk, but my feeling is this, what your question about Branson, and that's a machine. That is a machine. And so you're dealing with big money, big entertainment area, and we have an entertainment area here. I was going to say Doug and Barb have a database of probably, what, Barb, 200-300 leads in your database with the Colorado Music Business Organization.
Are you referring to businesses,
Yeah,
clubs, or?
yeah, clubs or bands that are on the website that she could talk to, and it's really about grassroots. Getting back to your grassroots about everything we're doing. It's you have to get to know the system. If you don't know the system here, and I'm glad you're here, but that's the same thing. We're not set up like a big operation. Even in Denver, Colorado, I attended a festival or a summit last week in Denver at the Civic Center, and they put together these events every year for people that are trying to be successful in the music industry. And the majority of the people that attended it were independent artists from Colorado Springs, Denver, Pueblo. One of the particular venues that I could recommend that you get in touch with is the Castle Ranch. It's James Holmes is a guy I could get his information to you, and he's now starting to do live performances in this big, huge castle. Is it Sedona? Or it's just between,
Sedalia, maybe?
yeah, right there. And they're starting to do shows Friday nights at that castle. Now, that's totally outside the box, but I think when you're used to something like you've been in Branson, in America, everything is so fragmented. Doug and I had the conversation before the panel that, you know, we have cliques in this group or in this area or different parts of the country. So if you get to know Dave and Amy, they know each other. Steve and I know each other. That's how we got hooked up. Doug knows Barb, so it's a network. And once you get into that network, you'll be able to move forward. So I'd suggest giving everybody here a card when we leave and stay in touch with us. I mean, it's grassroots, but that's the only way I know that you stay in the game.
Thank you.
And I was going to suggest you visit our local KRCC, that's our national public radio station. They're attached to Colorado College. They play a lot of music. Also, go visit with Bill at the Independent newspaper. He's the music editor. I'm not really sure who's running what at the Gazette anymore. But
I don't
again,
either.
I would suggest you go and you know, put a face to these names and let them see who you are and what you're all about.
Because an email isn't just going to do it. I travel six months out of the year. I'm out of town traveling to different music events. And my philosophy is if I don't show up, I'm out of business. So if you don't show up and you don't follow up, and Doug and I said, most musicians won't say, hey, it's going to cost, what, $10 to come to the event? I don't know how much it was, $20. If they can't afford to come to a workshop for $20, then they shouldn't be in the business. I mean, you've got to invest in you. It's not, you know, but it's also, Doug and I said, the me.com audience and touch an audience. And that's what every one of us try to figure out is how do we build audiences and credibility. So
Another thing that Rocky Mountain Highway is doing at our website, we have I'm curating the Pikes Peak concert calendar, which I list all the concerts I know about with the name of the venues. So if you recognize some of the artists that might be similar to who you are, that might give you an idea for venues that might be appropriate. I also send out a weekly e-blast where I list the top 10 concerts that I pick each week, and also I list about 15 just in that newsletter. And I try to mix it up and pick different sorts of things. Our focus is mostly on roots music, so you know I'm not doing anything with metal or hip hop or things like that generally, although sometimes I do mention some other things. But those, I think my market is people who really enjoy roots music, be it bluegrass, country, folk, that kind of thing, rock and roll. It's also hard here, and David probably knows this better than anyone, but it's hard to get people to buy concert tickets in Colorado Springs. And particularly if you don't have an established base network already, you may have to do some free things that would be, the free events are definitely much better attended until your name is better known. But
Yeah. What helped us probably more than anything, and these two know, we played at Front Range Barbecue every Wednesday night for 5 years, and that in itself threw down enough foundation for us to continue building on, based on just different people coming out and getting to know who we were and meeting a bunch of, we were young, or earlier 20s and mid 20s, and you had a lot of friends would come out, and we ended up doing little music festivals with a couple hundred people up in the mountains at the Happy Ass Ranch and Divide, and just like big hippie parties, and just getting people together, and the word would spread that way, and every week we would just try to have a different show and just try to play different music, even if it was completely unrehearsed and was terrible. We would still just throw it. The bars are forgiving like that, they'll let you screw up and not really care. And so we did a lot of teeth cutting too for 5 years there, and that's what helped. If you can get a weekly or a bi-weekly gig where it's consistent here in town, then you can start building on that too, and then get 2 or 3 people that come out every week, and then they bring a few, and then it just keeps building on itself. And then you can become a viable act for like one of Steve's festivals, where they know that you're going to sell some tickets, and your word going out and telling everybody in the community is going to help spread their word even more. And but that's what I would suggest too, not spending $1,000 advertising independent, but find a gig, weekly gig. Like Rico's is great up on Rico's Coffee Shop will be probably great for you guys, and it's a neat little room, and they've got it's a destination location, so there's always people there. You don't have to work real hard to get an audience.
And I was going to say one other thing that recently I found out was I think the state government has now made a position for a music liaison for the state for the music business. This recently came up probably in the last 10 days. And they've gotten, I'm not sure who the person is, but the state is now recognizing that music has value in the state, and they are going to have a position for people like yourself and people like us to go to and say, hey, this is who I am, this is my experience, so that they can kind of be a facilitator for you. It's like the Pikes Peak Arts Council. I mean, they're trying to build their brand for this association and have some relevancy for Southern Colorado. So.
Well, and there's many, many venues listed if you were to pick up the independent. You can judge by the hours of what's going on, usually as to what kind of music it is. If it's starting at 9 o'clock, it's usually a bigger band. You're not looking at a solo or a duo artist. If something starts at 7, well, it's a little bit different. So I know it's hard to visit every single venue, but that should give you a little bit of an idea of where you might want to play. And I don't even know what you play or who you are. But that's just one way to do it, to save some time. And then, get on the computer and Google these places. See who's been there, what kind of music. A lot of these places will pay you something. Prices vary wherever you go as to what the different venues are paying. Also, do you have anything to sell? So if you have any kind of merchandise, if you're good, that could double or triple what you've made that evening. So, or we could talk a little more after.
Sure. Thank you.
Sarah?
I have a question. Thanks so much for being here today. My name's Sarah Rowe Correa. I have a voice studio that teaches the whole process, setting the goals, meeting those goals, not getting too hung up on failure, but using it, and taking them down to maybe a sit-in with the Black Rose group or the mezzanine or something like that. I'm looking for some stuff for 16 years and older, and just sitting in a dark room and listening to some musicians so that these singers understand what's going on. It usually separates the singers from the accountants after a while. Can you tell us some stories about maybe an opportunity you had that made you really excited about, wow, that was a good networking, or wow, I didn't see that coming, but it kind of sticks in your brain and helps you move forward as musicians?
I'm not a musician, so I can't talk to that
For
part.
me, I mean, I think one of the most defining moments, moving out here, set up a website, and I didn't really do anything but that, and I get an email from Ken Miller over at the Broadmoor, you know, and that is just, that pretty much set in stone that we had a band and we were just going to keep working because we had corporate gigs coming in. Gave us all the incentive we needed to keep investing in our music. And I didn't network with him, but what I did do was record a pretty killer version of Voodoo Child with my friend on guitar, and we just put that on the website, and he hit us up. It was like, this is something we're looking for out here. You want to come play at the Broadmoor? Like, yeah.
Did you ever find out how he found your website?
I think all this comes back to the Independent. When I left, the CEO was like, are you going to talk about the Independent? I was, of course I'm going to talk about the Independent. But I think the Independent did a write-up on us, you know, and we were going to open for the Oak Ridge Boys over at the Pikes Peak Center. We'd been playing down at Front Range. Their marketing director came in down there, and we were squeezed in the corner doing our thing, and she's like, I think you guys would be great for open. We were like, what? Okay, you know, we'll do that. And so the Indy writes a thing up on us, and I hadn't had the website set up a couple of months, you know, and we get an email from Ken. And so that was, you know, again, back to playing at that bar, standing there, being there, doing it. Yeah, we were young and we didn't care. We would drink all night and wake up with no sleep and go to work and be hungover all day, you know, and had no problem with it then. I can't do it anymore. But that's what it, you know, that's where the networking opportunity that you're talking about, the aha moment, was when she walked into Front Range and was like, you guys want to open up for the Oak Ridge Boys, you know, I think. And she was a friend of our bass player, you know, and he, again, more networking. He works for Vladimir Jones, or used to be called Preco, big advertising agency here in town. And John knew her through advertising the Pikes Peak Center and World Arena. And so, you know, it's about who you know and that networking thing there. And,
there are several groups too that are local that are specific to different types of music. So you have the Pikes Peak Jazz and Swing Society. If your music is jazz oriented, you should get in touch with them. Black Rose Acoustic Society speaks for itself with acoustic music. Pikes Peak Blues Community that Amy helped or did start, I guess, for the blues folks. I don't know if there's others than that, but those three are great networking.
Does Canyon City still have theirs?
There are satellite ones as well. So there's Canyon Rose Acoustic Society, there's Buffalo Grass Acoustic Society, which is out in Peyton.
is it Mama Mountain?
I think they're kind of dormant right now, but
Woodland Park one.
Mountain,
Yeah.
yeah.
I could say on the songwriter side or on the business side, one of the great stories that I was fortunate to have here in Colorado Springs, this is a while back, where we got an opportunity to open up for Night Ranger back in the day. And it was the same week as all the OJ trial stuff happened. And this bar opened up, which was on the Rock and Roll. And we had more people at that show than probably 10 gigs that we had done before. And then the first time I ever heard one of our songs on the radio, here locally, that was probably the biggest rush, because once that started, then you started getting more and more calls. You started going to festivals, doing showcases, and that it gives you goosebumps. And I could say, for my experience, that was one of the biggest rushes that has kept me in the business as long as anytime that I've had stuff on television. I've had a song on South Park for 12 years. And every time it comes on, I get excited. Maybe it's 2 in the morning, but you know, you look at the episode and you say, woohoo, because you know you're going to get paid. And the other writer's going to get paid. And so, yeah, and so it gives you a rush to be in this business. I've met Stevie Wonder. I mean, that was one of my biggest thrills of my life. And it wasn't a deal where I was trying to, you know, say, hey man, I love you, I just want, help me, me.com. It was like, hey, we were contemporaries. And so like they're saying, you know, once Dave said with the Independent, 1998, I got a story in the Independent. I was in the front section. He opened it up, and it's about my production company. And then you go down to the Ritz and you go downtown, you pull that up and you see your face in that magazine. It gives you incentive to say, why do I want to keep going? You know, and that's why we're all in this business. Every one of us could be doing something else in our lives, but we love this business. There's something addicting about the business. And that's why I'm still in it today. I'm developing songwriters, and I continue to do it. I love what I do.
You know, I think to kind of carry on a generic answer to your question, pretty much what I've seen in the industry over the years is, and even with myself, is if you bring something, even if it's just a little bit different, you have to stand out from the crowd. You have to have something that is your signature. You can't be, you know, the bands that play the same songs are going to be playing the same songs, and the groups that take any national artist that's ever been. Now, I happen to be in the rock industry, so I can look at Elton John, I can look at Prince, they're all different. The Eagles are all different. Pick one. They all bring something completely different to the table that's not like anybody else, and that's really the biggest key to success that I see. If you're just going to be another Katy Perry, or I'll pick on Katy Perry, but if you're going to be another Katy Perry, unless you've got an agent with a lot of money that's just going to put you out there, you don't have a chance.
Well, and with Katy Perry, that's a great example, because her name is Katie Hudson. Okay, Katie Hudson had a record deal in Nashville and failed on 2 albums. And so she moves to LA. Capitol Records didn't want to deal with her as Katie Hudson, so they changed her name to Katy Perry, and they rebranded her. And it's the same thing with Lady Gaga. Okay, Lady Gaga, singer-songwriter, artist in the mid-2000s that nobody cared to go listen to in New York City. So she pulled the branding and created a character. Trying to think the real crazy rock guy, hard rock guy, not Alice Cooper, but Marilyn Manson. I know the manager of Marilyn Manson. He's a good friend of mine. And for years, they were trying to figure out, how can somebody take me serious? So he started this whole transformation into this whole character.
Sure. Look what Kiss did.
Yeah, Kiss is the greatest example, because they're a machine.
I want to say that also Lady Gaga has done something very interesting recently. She's got a legit voice.
Yes.
Oh yeah, truly.
She played the game, she did the thing, and then she hooked up with
Tony
Bennett.
And now she's sung a little classical Broadway.
Right, and that was part of her background originally.
Came in the back door.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She absolutely did. I really honor her for that. And now she's sky's the limit.
Go ahead.
The bottom line is, if you're going to do anything serious, you need some resources. I mean, if you're sleeping on your mom's couch, and I mean, you know, it's good luck. So you have to figure out how to either find someone else's resources that they're going to be generous with, or you're going to have to. I have a little saying that I like, that I made up. It's probably stupid, but I'm lactose intolerant. Get off the couch. You know, I mean, that's really what you need.
Could I share what the names I know about this Colorado music strategy? Are any of you, it might be what you're talking about.
That's probably what it
It's-
is.
It's sponsored by the Colorado Creative Industries.
Yeah, that's it,
CCI.
that's it.
And then this is called the Colorado Music Strategy. And I met the two men who are kind of responsible or hired by the state. And one of them is Bryce Merrill and one of them is Jesse Elliott.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's,
so I'm sure if you went on CCI's website, you could learn more. I have one of their cards, but I don't have it with me. So anyway, so I can't give you more contact information, but I'm sure on the website you can get that. But the concept is that it's to build value for music industry and musicians. And one of the kind of ideas behind it is that, you know, traditionally, you know, you're on the road, you get paid very little, you leave, you know, right away to get to your next gig, and so the concept is that they're building community. So they are staying 3 or 4 days in a site, you know, at a venue somewhere around the state, you know, in a town or wherever. That there's support, that there's some financial support through the state, that they're building this network of venues that will be available and on the website for people like yourself to, you know, to access. And another part of it is, part of this community building is that, say there's, you have some other special interest besides music, you have time. And they mentioned a hip-hop artist in Denver, and I don't remember the name, that's also into gardening. So they're hooking him up with a community where they want to support the youth and not being such high risk. You know, so besides the music, they're going to like this connection around gardening and whatever. So that is part of that concept. And so I know one idea that we in Manitou are toying with is providing some of these funds that will be available through this Colorado Music Strategy and the Creative Arts District that we're qualifying for. And I know that downtown Colorado Springs is already a Colorado Arts District. So there could be some funds through CCI to pay you for a gig, and also it builds this network of venues.
You know, every vibrant community, music community that I've ever seen or been exposed to has been created by the artists themselves. If we don't get together and do it ourselves, nobody's going to do it for us. You can take any of the music scenes that have ever happened, and you look at Nashville, they all kind of, you know, they all help each other out. You can go to the Seattle thing that happened in Detroit with Motown and da-da-da. I mean, it was created by the artists. So the only way it's going to happen here is if we create it. If I help everybody else here, if I help you, you help me, we help each other, everybody helps each other in the room, even if it's just one little thing, one telephone call, one little, you know, tidbit of information or a contact or something. That's the only way it happens. And then it has to build on itself, and it has to keep going. That's the hard part. I know all kinds of people that start things and try things, and it just kind of, because the energy, I mean, it just, we have to do it.
Well, these are musicians, and that's why, you know, they know the business too, and they come up just like you have. I mean, these are younger guys, but, I mean, they are interested in, and there's support from CCI, Colorado Creative Industries.
great.
Right. I'll get that information pulled together and get that, make that available to you all. And Rita with Small Business Development Center can help make that information available as well. You know, to me, artists are your small business, you know, and that's why we connected with Small Business Development, because you're all trying to make an idea, a passionate idea, into something that you can create livelihood out of. So, and we all know good, strong business practices mean you got to get out there and connect, and you've got to shake hands, and you've got to say, here I am, and you've got to create a presentation that works, so that when a booking agent like Amy or Steve, what's the first thing that stands out to you? Somebody sends you an email and a little video clip or a sound clip, what is it you're looking for? Well, you're probably looking for quality more than anything, right? So, can you speak to kind of what that presentation looks like when information comes to you?
Don't you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
My name is Ron Coussard, and I'm a local musician. And my
Where do you play, Ron?
Excuse me?
Where do you play?
I used to play in all the venues in
Okay.
the downtown area.
I'm just getting a background, that's all.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
What instrument?
yes,
Okay.
no, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I play guitar, and I also play drums. I've been in the Colorado Springs area for about 15 years. I've been playing in the downtown areas for that period of time. And smooth jazz, blues, funk, R&B, in an area what seems to be the land of folk, bluegrass, country, and acid rock and heavy metal.
Blues.
And I'm surviving, I'm doing well, and I'm finding pockets of organizations and areas that enjoy what I do. My question deals with pay levels. For so long in this area, they have been in between, 150, maybe max out about 600. Once in a while I get lucky and play at a venue for 2 hours, make 1,500, but that's pie in the sky kind of stuff. But it's always been around $300-400. And to me, that's, it's kind of a slap in the face for people for artists who are out there trying to, really display their music. Is it always going to be that way?
Well, here's my perspective on this, Ron. If clubs that feature live music would charge people to walk in, they could afford to pay the artists more money, even if you just got the door. I've had a talk about this with several club owners, and I'm not going to mention names, but they can't afford to pay the bands because the bands don't get the crowds out there. So if it's this vicious circle. You want the gig that pays high, but if only 50 people show up to the venue owner isn't making money. So now he's lost money hiring you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's business. Yeah.
Right. So if you could get to the point where you can do your own shows and even charge $5 a person, maybe that's just another route for you to go.
And,
But, there's going to be caps on the venues because they can only afford so much money. And a lot of these venues, their concentration isn't always the music. It's the food, it's the drinks. The music is just, all right, let's fill this in to keep people here a little longer.
It's a lost leader is what it is, and I was talking to Doug and Nora earlier this morning, and I could get you a gig in Sunset Strip tomorrow, but they would say, you know what, here's 30 tickets, you get paid whatever you sell.
And that's another way that I've heard is from musicians that are not local. Just what Ron just said, a lot of the venues are now giving you tickets.
Right.
You sell them for whatever, it's $5 a ticket, it's $20 a ticket, and that's your pay. So you're also showing the venue that you have an audience. Maybe the second time around it would be a little different if you had an audience show up.
To the point of being a draw, one of the biggest impediments I see to being a draw is overexposure. If you're in this club Friday, you're in this club Saturday, you're in that club Wednesday, you're in this, people say, well, I'm not going to go out tonight because I can go see them next week.
There's no urgency.
Yeah,
They can see you anytime.
So what we used to do back in the 90s here in Colorado Springs is we'd play down here. I did a lot of stuff up in Denver, and then I'd come down here, and we'd try to have 1 or 2 shows and spread them out. Like 1 month we're in Colorado Springs, and then we do our Denver shows, and then the next month we'd come back and we'd do maybe at the end of the month, so that you're not saturating yourself to the market, because then everybody in your market knows you. And so the fear of this industry is not getting outside of the local market. Then you become a regional. I just heard Ben from the Fray talk a couple days ago, and one of the struggles that they dealt with, and they're dealing with now, they're signed to Sony, is where do you go after you've made so much money on touring and so much money on music? They have to keep reinventing themselves. They're doing a small tour in California, but the success that they got in 02 and 03, they're having to go do day jobs to pay the bills. That's just the reality of what we were talking about, this technology thing, and the way that club owners, like Amy said, all they care about is drinks and keeping the people in the club. If you can't keep them in the club, then they're not going to pay you. And that's everywhere in America. Now, the difference in Europe, and if you've seen it, and I don't know, you guys want to comment on it, is there's a shift going on right now in the music industry internationally, because the international market is embracing the music business. We've kind of just said, do you know what I want to ask you a question. What do you think the revenue or the percentage of the U.S. market in the entire world? What do you think the most revenue in the U.S. market is right now? Just revenue. 7%. 93% is in the rest of the world. In the music business. So we're in a situation where Europe's taken off. The guy that won the Grammy was from England. The last 2 or 3 years, Adele won one, and I'm seeing a shift that people are going over to these other countries because for some reason we've taken our market and neutered it. Just like I said, there's no middle ground. I think it will come back. I think there are transitions that will come back. You think it will come back?
I think it'll come back. I think to that point, I think what one of the root causes of that is that we've pretty much taken music out of the education system. And I mean, the kids aren't getting it. They're getting whatever crap they listen to, and my kids listen to it, so. But
they don't appreciate the music because they didn't have music.
they don't have the music appreciation that that the Europeans and the rest of the world are doing. They're still exposing their youth to the fine arts of music and all the fine arts, and we're just taking it out because we don't have the money and we don't have the time and nobody else knows how to do it and whatever.
We're playing in a local charter school tomorrow.
Excellent.
So you know, we are accordionists, my husband and I.
Oh, cool.
And we play every style of music from classical to jazz to standards. And I don't want to, but people don't understand the accordion and all it can do, and it gets. Part of our trouble is it gets, stuck in this German band Umlaut thing, which is totally eliminates the expansiveness of what the accordion can do. So we're known in the accordion markets, but the accordion markets don't have, the money. And so what we're trying to do is educate people what the accordion can do. I mean,
right.
We do. I was a bronze medalist in the World Championship, which requires all the same stuff as the piano competitions, your program of Bach and all that stuff. And then we love big band and jazz and all that. So we're kind of in this weird place because we're not, like you say, well, this genre accepts this genre accepts that. The bluegrass thing, well, we don't really fit in the bluegrass, we don't really fit here and there. So it's even a weirder place. But we're at least, trying to, like tomorrow, I'm so excited. It's our first little school concert. We're going to expose these kids to what the accordion can do. And so our purpose tomorrow is just play every kind of music you can think of.
There's a part of the Gazette, and I don't know what it's called right now, but you can write your own article about what it is you do.
Oh, really?
And eventually they'll publish it.
It's called Freshing.
Thank you.
I think
They
now
keep
it's called
changing
My
the name.
Colorado, because they
Now
did
it's
change
My
it.
Colorado?
It used to be
Okay, so it's changed already to My Colorado.
So maybe as musicians, we keep going with this education, like kind of, maybe, it's kind of come out that we don't know really where our food was coming from, right? So, or how it was grown, but that's exactly what it is with the music. How do you go from here to being, oh gosh, I don't even know her name, from Australia or whatever, that's big, Iggy Azalea, right? There's a big disconnect there for the kids I'm teaching. And I think it's my responsibility as a musician to say, well, here's what happens next, and then maybe next, and then, oh, please practice. Please get your stuff down so that when the big thing happens or somebody asks you a question, you're ready.
Right.
You're really ready.
Well, and I love,
If I could comment on this, and Rob and I have had conversations about this on Rodney. He asked me to record this, but YouTube has really taken the obscure into prominence. I mean, look at Justin Bieber. He was basically a kid in a closet with a camera. And so the YouTube in doing covers, there's a group called, I forgot the name, World Walk Off the Earth, Walk Off the World, I think is the name of it. Anyhow, they have millions and millions of followers. They started just doing covers. What's interesting is when someone popular will do a release, they'll ask this band to do the cover because they're more popular than Adele. And
It's brilliant.
now they came to the place where they cut their own album because they have millions of followers on YouTube. YouTube is taking, and it still works hand in hand on concert promotions because YouTube right now, 100 minutes is being uploaded every minute. By 2017, 100 minutes will be viewed every second. And if you talk about the difference between reading and watching video, is that 20% of people will read on a website, 80% that go to a website will watch a video.
Yeah.
So if you get to a place where you want to promote what you do from obscurity to prominence, do something with video and explode it on the social media market, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and have people share it, reshare it, get it out. And that's how these groups go from obscurity to follow it, to a fan club. Then when it gets to the place where they have a concert release, people already have seen them on YouTube. YouTube, if you want YouTube, get a YouTube channel and then promote subscription. Get people to subscribe. When you cut a new cover or a new something, put it on YouTube. Get it out the best you can. Obviously, I'm a professional. But get it out there and then get people subscribed to your channel. And when it comes time for concert promotions where you're going to be at a club, people are going to say, oh yeah, I want to watch them. Man, they're accordions, they play jazz. I didn't know that. I love jazz.
Well, and they have a channel now, just like Rodney was saying, is you create your own content, you do your own channel. Well, now what YouTube's starting to do is starting to pay you money to create your own content. That's brand new that they've started in the last probably 18 months. And getting back to the visual of his comments and everybody's comments on here, if it wasn't for television, Elvis Presley wouldn't have been seen on Ed Sullivan. So that's a visual. If Michael Jackson wouldn't have had Thriller video, he wouldn't have sold 100 million
That's right.
copies of Thriller.
They did only see half of Elvis.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. But think about that. It's all the historical things that we've seen with music and television and expanding.
so, sorry.
No, go ahead.
On the video thing, I mean, and I might be like maybe this person, but man, everything I put on video, I don't get paid for it. You know, it feels like, as an artist, it feels like I kind of find myself fighting the idea of it a little bit because I'm thinking you're putting it out there, everybody can download it free. Why are they going to come?
Video your thing tomorrow and then put it up.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do, if you know somebody who can do any editing, video editing, or know somebody who can, it's pretty easy to get that done now. Consider recording half of 10 songs and then, just putting a 30-second clip of a lot of different things, so you're not actually giving away.
Oh yeah, don't go
So
ahead.
you're
Yeah.
The
You
good
want
point, the good
teasers out
point that
there.
you're saying on there is movie trailers.
Yeah.
Why do people watch movie trailers? Movie trailers are free, the movie is not. The movie trailer is to promote you to get to the movie.
Right.
You're the movie,
Yeah.
build the trailer.
And
The other point I was going to make to your situation is, one thing that I've done is I play trumpet, and besides being a vocalist, which is kind of an odd rock and roll instrument. And I go out and jam with bluegrass bands. I go out and jam with R&B bands. I go out and jam with people that are playing blues, and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy when I walk in with a trumpet. What are you going to do with that? Well, you're good enough on your accordion to go anywhere. Hook up with some of these guys, play a couple gigs, invite them over to your gig. What that does is,
if you do Zydeco, because we need Zydeco accordion players in this town more than anything. The one that was great had a stroke, and so he's, there isn't another one in town. So, you could be in a band tomorrow, if you can rip up some Zydeco.
one of
Oh
the
my gosh, we created a new band.
Not with me, with John.
David?
So, we can talk a lot about networking and putting your stuff out there, putting your stuff on YouTube, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, some stuff sells and some stuff doesn't sell. And I'm curious if you could talk about sort of the trends you're seeing locally and nationally in terms of brand, in terms of what sound is emerging, where the next big thing is.
I'll take the national question because I do a lot of traveling and I see a lot of stuff on the national level. And what really, really bothers me right now is I don't see any development whatsoever from any of these companies, the big companies. So when you ask me the question about what do you see on a trend, on a national trend for us as Americans, what I'm seeing is a lot of these hit producers are now going over to England and going over to Germany, and they're producing artists over there because the mechanism is set up just like Branson, Tennessee. And I'm saying what I would suggest for you or any of the music that you like is look what these other markets are doing in the rest of the world to continue to hone your craft. Because if you rely on seeing Jay-Z and Beyonce on there and you're seeing these hip-hop guys, there's more to the industry than just what they're feeding us. And I spent it last week. I was in Las Vegas and I saw the trailer for Mission Impossible 5. I saw Van Diesel, Furious 7. That film grossed $16 billion in $1 billion in 16 days. Okay, that soundtrack is #1 on the charts right now. And what they did is they went outside the U.S. market and got some artists to do a soundtrack. One of the things that New Kids on the Block, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys did when they first started out, they left America and then they went over to Europe and they established a fan base over there. I'm not saying you could do that, David, or whatever you're doing, but I'm saying look at what other countries are doing. I do a lot of stuff in Australia. Australia still wants to know this business. So if you look at the Grammy Awards this year, most of the awards were from European artists. The film industry is set up that way. So it will cycle back around.
I guess my question is more, and maybe I'll direct it towards Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, Steve, at the end of the day, you're in a lot of ways determining the taste of what this community listens to as a promoter, through the radio show, through Meadowgrass. Amy, as a booker, you're determining the taste. And you can, I guess, disagree with that. But what are you looking for? What's hot? What's yesterday's news?
Well, certainly with Meadowgrass, and I often say that I kind of regret that we named it Meadowgrass, because I often get people who say, I don't like bluegrass music. And it's not a bluegrass festival. But unfortunately, we're stuck with the name, and at this point, it's got a pretty big following, so we're not going to change it. But over the past decade or so, we've had this emergence of this term Americana, which is broad and can't be defined. So accordion music fits in, jazz fits in, I think, although jazz is a little bit, maybe not quite Americana. At Meadowgrass, we're doing a mix of styles, because what I'm finding is that true music lovers want to see a bunch of different things. I mean, there's great bluegrass festivals. Bluegrass at the Fair in Pueblo has been going on 25 years. You can go down there and see 25 bluegrass bands. And if you're a bluegrass aficionado, that's a great place to be. Our audience, I don't think, wants to hear a bluegrass band after another
24/7.
bluegrass band after another bluegrass band. And so I try to mix it up with rock and roll, folk. I have had funk and jazz in the past. I don't really have anyone like that this year. But I think, and it's part of this whole Spotify culture too, where people have access to kind of unlimited amounts of music. You don't even need to buy music. You just subscribe to a service and you can get whatever it is that you want. My Sonos system has something called Songza that's free, and it's all curated lists. If I want a mood, if it's going to be relaxing at home, or if it's cooking breakfast, I can just pull that up and you get these automatic lists that are populated. So people are overwhelmed with the amount of music that's out there. So in looking for artists, we book a third local bands, a third regional, and a third national, because it's important to us to support the local music community. I have a list now of over 200 local acts that I think would be appropriate for Meadowgrass. I can book 7 or so a year, so it takes a long time. And I'm continually adding new bands to that list. This year, all my bands are new, partly because I want to try to give everyone local a chance. And these are the early spots for the most part. David's band has played a little bit later in a better spot, but most of the local bands are going to be at 11 o'clock in the morning. But we now have people who are there at 11 o'clock ready for music all 3 days. But for us, it's important. We really focus primarily on original music, so we're not looking for cover music at all. And it really, even though CDs are kind of going away, I like to see bands that have at least released a CD, so I know that they're invested in their careers as well. I'll do the digital download thing, but I don't spend in my time looking at YouTube. I listen to a CD and I want to hear good original songwriting. I want to hear consistent songwriting that's not like a one-hit sort of one-off, but I feel like each song on the album could be played. And I think there's again, it's not the music industry. I'm not part of the upper tier, but there's a lot of people. The other thing I would say is house concerts can be key too. I know a lot of musicians who just do house concerts now because you can charge 10, 15, 20 bucks a person, mostly because people they could bring their own drinks, so they don't have to pay extra. All that money goes to the artists. And I know several quality musicians, a lot of quality musicians who that's what they want to do because they get all the money from it. You've got an audience, you're building a relationship with people. So house concerts is another emerging trend that I think is important.
But to answer your question, what's hot? I think mixed gender bands in the Americana flair is what's pretty hot right now. Girls front lead singers, couple dudes, badass pickers, and that's what he's got all over his lineup here. The Stray Birds, Ragbirds, they're both mixed gender bands, young and really good, great harmonies. It's like that's the other. You'd be the best pickers in the world. Like we're good pickers in grass. We can't sing. I'm gonna be the first person to admit that, and we don't have great harmony. Some of the bands on here have great harmony, and that's to me that's what's hot.
Yeah, more than half of my bands have female artists in them this year, which is in the old days the music industry was dominated by men, but I think
You might have Pat Benatar, who was Joan Jett, you know,
Yeah.
those two, you know, Hart.
Well, and David, just my perspective is, starting this year, our business has taken a turn, and we're doing things a little differently, so I'm no longer producing shows as we used to. I'm booking music for other people, and what I'm looking for the most part, unless it's a club, is family-friendly. Okay, that's a biggie. I don't want people up on stage who are going to be cursing when we're at the Pikes Peak Art and Music Festival, or at Juneteenth, or at Gold Hill Mesa, some of the different music that I book. So it needs to be family-friendly, and what I find appealing is something exciting. I don't like to listen to a CD to judge a band, because, as most people in this room know, when you're producing a CD, you can do anything to it and have anyone on it. I want to know who's showing up for the gig and who's going to be on that stage and what their stage presence is like. I've seen some good bands on stage musically, but they don't move. They like, I'm sitting in my chair like this is how they are. I want to see someone moving on that stage, get my attention and keep it. So it's really difficult to say. I don't think there's a bad genre of music. It's just where it's comfortable. We have a group in town, I've just heard a few times, the Reminders. And they're, someone help me, hip-hop?
Yep.
That's not a genre that I'm aware of enough to promote, but they have a great following out there. And I've seen them do family-friendly shows. So I think any genre can fit in there. And it just matters of where you're looking to play.
Can we go back to Ron's question, or your comment about, is this the way it's always going to be, and how do I value my talent in this particular market, and how we assess and understand what this market is about?
You mean in the club and downtown?
In
Are you
any
talking
ven-
about Colorado Springs
Right,
for
in any
music?
venue.
Is that your
Colorado Springs.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, outside, I got to tell you, the dollar value goes up.
Uh-huh.
And, but here, and I'm talking about 15 plus years.
Right, I
It's
understand.
insane.
I'm a native, so
Okay,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But is that something that he should go to the venue and present his value, or should, I mean, how does he begin to assert his, his,
What,
pardon me, his
how
voice,
how I would approach it, for me, my opinion, and the guys can comment if they want. Ron, you're running a political campaign, okay? And you're trying to get, but you're trying to get your music out into a larger, what I would suggest you do, and this is basic 101 common sense, it's just sit down and say, I want to be here in 3 months, I want to be here in 6 months, and I want to be here in 12 months in the Colorado Springs market. And then I'd look around, just like what Dave was saying and Amy was saying about looking at the independent and looking at the clubs. Okay, so you've played everywhere downtown. Have you played out on Powers? Have you played out in Rock Rimmon? And you have. So maybe for your situation, you might start looking outside the market, maybe Woodland Park. I think you mentioned there's some stuff in Manitou where you're circulating. You talk to Steve about your material, and he may want to have you on the show. And then that way, if it's original music, that's all you'll play, right? Original,
For the
usually.
most part. Occasionally I make an exception.
And yes, you've been in the game 15 years. I totally can relate to it. But you got to continue every day saying, this is what Ron wants to do with his life. It's got to be in here, number one. If it's about just the dollars and cents, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And that's what I'm saying, is that I could do a heck of a lot more in my life. But the reason I chose the music business is I loved records. And I got into the business because I wanted to know the mechanics of how the business was run. If you're sitting there and saying, we brought it up earlier, merchandising. question on the accordion situation. You're doing a show tomorrow. Different person, but you should have some sort of contact information for every one of those kids to hit you up later if they want to. Because guess what? They're going to go home to their mom and dad and say, hey man, check out what I saw at school today. It was off the hook. Same thing, Ron, that you do. If there's something that you're doing, that get recommendations, get recommendations, written recommendations. The first record project I ever did, I went out to 5 people in the industry that knew me, and I had to raise $20,000 to do a production. I was able to do it because I had people in the production that vouched for my credibility. And in town, in Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Denver, it's about credibility and about you getting out there and working it. Not just because I'm doing a $1,500 gig. Yeah, if that's your $1,500, you can figure it out. There's ways to do it. Merchandising, hats, t-shirts, flyers, something to give to the audience. When you walk out of that room, everybody in that room needs to know Ron. Bottom line.
Yeah.
So, I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
As musicians and artists, you know, we spend all our time developing our craft and being the best at what we can be and, you know, doing that. But not only do you have to do that, you have to do your own marketing. You have to do all this stuff that you're saying. You have to sell yourself. And that's where I hate, you know, I don't
The
like
problem
that
I
stuff.
find with most local musicians is they do exactly what you're saying, and they don't know the business end of music.
Right.
Let me add to that. That is something that is not going to go away.
Yeah.
You're a brand. You have to step out there, and I happen to be a person who believes that I can make some money out of this. I am. Do I have 6, 7 different avenues coming in? Yeah, that's fine with me. But I'm going to kind of work it in each direction. And that's how I bring that in, because I know this person, oh, hey, and you're here. I mean, we're all so cross-pollinated today. So I think that the brand, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that, you know, kind of getting down to some nitty-gritty stuff.
One thing I just wanted to bring up real quickly, Ron, is what you're up against is you're up against other musicians that will play whenever for less than what you want.
Yeah.
So as a businessman owning a club, he's going to go, well, wait a minute. They're just here drinking, and most of the bands are just kind of like background music to the pool table or to, you know, to whatever's going on. The majority, yeah, right. So you're up against that. So as a businessman owning a club, he's going to go, well, wait a minute. They're just here drinking, and most of the bands are just kind of like background music to the pool table or to, you know, to whatever's going on. The majority, yeah, right. So you're up against that. So again, back to my point earlier, the only out that you have is to be completely different to the point where people say, I got to go hear this guy.
Okay, one other comment, Ron, and think about this, really think about this. You think Stevie Wonder would have just said, I'm not talented? He kept going. James Brown kept going. These guys, all of these guys, the guys from Muscle Shoals.
Swampers.
Yeah, Muscle Shoals Studio or down there in Alabama.
Yeah, the Swampers.
The Swampers. Rick Hall. I met Rick Hall last year. He's 74 years old, and he's out talking to schools right now about the music business and how it can help. Maybe there's something that you've got, Ron, in your talent that you can help somebody else. And Motown used to put out groups. 2 or 3 of their groups would go out on tours and help each other. Just like you said, Doug, help each other. It isn't about me.com. I did a deal one time, guys, when I had a heavy metal act, 4 guys in a heavy metal band here in Colorado Springs. So you know what I did? They had real good vocal harmonies. So I went to Dublin Down and had them play in a jazz club, acoustic, unplugged, event. They ended up getting a gig there on a regular basis for once a month, playing at the Dublin House. And but they were like, "Oh, we don't want to go into this venue. This is off of our radar. Why? I don't want to do that." And if you pigeonhole yourself saying, "Well, I'm never going to do this," then you lose. And I go back to Quincy Jones. I know Quincy. I know Jimmy Jam. Do you think they would say, "Oh, there's just nothing here"? No, they were ridiculed in Minneapolis. Jimmy Jam, Quincy, for years got beat up, and he survived. So I'm looking at you like one of those guys, a Quincy or a guy that's got probably 15, 20 years of experience and can go out and kick ass. That's what we need to know about you. If I hear that you're doing some great stuff, guess what? I call him, I call her. There starts a buzz. That's how people win in this business. You can't just say, "Well, I can't do that." Well, take a day, The other day I went to a conference, Caesar's Palace. Accessibility was terrible for wheelchairs. I've got a wheelchair also. I spent 3 hours in Caesar's Palace trying to map my way around the convention before I went. It's the same thing you've got to do with your music. Talk to Dave over there. If you just got a recommendation from him about how great he was. You should know everybody in this room when you leave.
Go ahead.
And just diligence is, my son's a musician, Dan Matthews, and he was giving this tip to his friend who thought he knew it all. But, listen, you've got to love this and you've got to stick with it, because he said most bars or wherever you go to, they're there to drink, they're there to talk, they're, whatever. And they're not even paying attention to you, but you got to love it. And just like you all have been saying.
And I can give you a story. You had asked about a story that changed a musician's life. There was a club up in Denver called Bangles. It was a rock and roll club. We couldn't get gigs it was in the hard rock days. Couldn't get anything. Couldn't open up for it. We were always the last band on the bill. So I got this group. They came to me. I managed them. Within 6 to 12 months, they were filling the bar because they looked at themselves and said, "You know what? We're not doing something right, and it's not working with what we're doing, so we need to change what we're doing." Ron, if you've got only certain bars, certain numbers that you're doing, you've got to look at what you're doing and see where you can do things differently to keep winning. First thing I would do, I'd talk to Steve about the festival and go to the festival. You know why? Because all of these guys are musicians. Regardless if they don't play what you play, you've got your name out there. I'm part of the Recording Academy in the LA chapter. I'm on a bunch of committees with them about the Songwriter Equity Act. And I go up to Congress and I deal with what are they going to do to pay us. You've got to do the same thing here and be active.
Is ASCAP still?
Yeah, ASCAP's still involved too. ASCAP is a performing rights society and BMI are. And they're right now in a decree with the U.S. government. The Department of Justice is doing some work to try to adjust the royalty rates for songwriters and publishers in the music industry. So that's up. Oh yeah, it's only up. And one of the, getting back to Dave's question in the back earlier about national, a lot of the major companies now are spending so many resources on lobbying Congress and lobbying the government that they've taken their ball off of developing new talent. And that's what I see as the problem in our market. Now, here everything you're doing, Steve, Doug, I mean, he's taking somebody to Nashville next week because he knows in his heart that that person has potential. I do the same thing. You know, if I take a songwriter getting about quality of demos and stuff, I don't need something fully radio friendly. If you bring me a song and it's on a guitar vocal, I'll listen to it. But if you've gone out and spent $10,000, you know, dolled it up like Amy was saying on recordings, I won't listen to most of those recordings because it's predetermined what that song's going to sound like. So what I tell writers, songwriters, just do a guitar vocal, do a piano vocal. And if the song stays up, fiddling, you know, bluegrass music, I mean, it's simple. It's simple music because you can relate to the beat. You can relate to the melodies. That's why it's so popular.
Well, it shows the strength of the song.
Yeah, totally. So.
One thing I'd like to say, which I didn't say originally, is I am co-vice president of the Pikes Peak Arts Council, and June 4th we're going to be having a membership meeting and a mixer, and it will be on our website, and I invite you to come out, whether you're a member or not. Again, if you want to meet people, you need to get out. Sitting at home, and I'm not saying you have to go to a ticketed concert every night, but if you want to meet people, you're not going to do it staying at home or sitting in front of the computer. You need to get out and do some face-to-face. That's our new generation coming up. Everything is in their hand now. And I'm not sure how communication's going to work years down the road because everything's typed. Nothing is coming out of your mouth. So you need to meet people and get immersed in the community and know different venues, different people, different genres of music, and I think that will help. Maybe even volunteering somewhere. It gives you a feel for what goes on in that organization or that venue or that school. There's just a number of different ways to meet people.
And not, Ron, not be afraid. Not to be afraid to approach somebody. Because I've had a walker and wheelchair my whole life, okay? And my family told me when I was 18 years old, not negatively, but said I'd never make it in the business. I took that as an incentive. You know what? I've made it. I'm not quite where I want to be, but I've had some success. You've had some success. So you're the only person that you have to answer to. And if you want to continue to hit home runs, just like Amy's saying, you got to go out and circulate. I'm going to come to that deal on the 4th if I'm in town and get to know the people of the council because it's important.
It is important. And I think that the community building piece is what's missing. And, you know, David mentioned a great resource that Copper has. It's a great directory. And what the Pikes Peak Arts Council has been doing since 1968 is advocating more for artists at a grassroots level. So we're more about supporting the spark of art, the creators of art. And our memberships are, you know, $25 a year for individuals. It's very, you know, low barrier to entry. And we're trying to pull together these individual genres of art into communities. It doesn't feel, I'm from Tulsa. Where I'm from in Tulsa, we have very identifiable, very progressive, creative communities. You can't miss it. It's just there. It's established. And when I came here and took this position a year and a half ago, and started kind of just getting out into each area, talking to the poetry groups, talking to the theater companies, and now musicians. And understanding that we didn't really have established communities, and we need that. And as I think somebody said earlier, we're not going to get it if we haven't. I can't do it by myself, and the Pikes Peak Arts Council can't do it. We have to gather you all together, and you know, make sure that the energy wants to move in that direction, and then we'll facilitate it. It's your arts council. It's not mine. It's yours. So, whatever we can do to kind of facilitate that. That's what we want to do. And you being here
Yeah.
is a
That's the first start.
step in the
Yep.
right direction. You're here saying, let's talk about this, let's help each other.
That's it.
I would answer the question for you as a composer is I'd put together, and I'm talking on the publishing side, and Rodney, that was good thoughts on that. Put your stuff together like if you've got 10 songs, and continue to build your catalog. Because one of the deals, my first big deal that I ever got on a large scale, I had enough content and enough songs that the people wanted to do a deal with me. The days of just finding the one hit to put you on the map, or the 2 hits to put you on the map, are gone away. So what I'd say to you is, the value that you have today with technology is you can get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and produce. I got up at 3:30 this morning. I've been up since 3:30 this morning working because I had things I needed to do. Now, I do that all the time because I've got something on my mind. As a composer, you have those energies and those levels, and not to get discouraged. You've chosen you want to do it now. You got the passion, so now you got to put together a game plan. Put together, like I said to Ron, where do you want to be in 3 months? Where do you want to be in 12 months?
A business
A business plan.
Business plan.
A real
The
legitimate,
Small Business Development
you know,
Center can
but
help you.
have flexibility on the plan.
Right.
Okay. Well,
It's like, wow, this is
let me
thrilling.
suggest something. Let me suggest something about that. Are you with ASCAP or BMI?
Not yet.
You need to be.
Okay.
You need to go home today and pick either one. I'm not going to tell you which one to pick, but you need to have those songs registered before. When is the performance down there?
This will be in October.
Okay, you need to have all your material that he's going to use and make sure that you have it registered with ASCAP.
Does that cost him something?
BMI, I think there is not a fee. I think ASCAP charges a fee. But you need to immediately get that before, because here's what happens with artists. They get this excitement, just like we were talking about YouTube, and they don't do the little things, and guess what? You won't see a dime from that exposure because you didn't register your songs. Elvis Presley, up until 1968, the manager, Colonel Tom, didn't register his content. So the only money he was making on that was on the physical albums. And so he missed out on a ton of royalties.
I'm going to wrap up briefly by saying, please fill out your eval, and if there's an opportunity to have another professional development series that's just on copyright issues, then we'll look at doing something like that. One more thing I'm going to say about the Pikes Peak Arts Council and how we want to take care of our creative community and facilitate these little communities that support each other is that we do microgrants, and you join our organization for $25, and we do $200 microgrants every single month. We do a $600 microgrant every quarter. So you have to be a member to apply for those, and literally, we do not put constraints upon your application. You don't have to show us receipts. It is a microgrant, and you can literally do whatever you want with the money. As long as we're supporting our creatives in this community, that's what we want to be doing. So we also have a specific one just for photographers and another specific one quarterly coming up for filmmakers. So that's, again, another thing that the
Do
Pikes
you
Peak
have a
Arts Council
newsletter
wants to do.
too?
We do, and you can certainly, if you join, I think in your little package, you've got a little sheet that shows you how to join, or just go online and shoot me an email and tell me you want to be on the newsletter email database. So.